All right, welcome back, guys. Thanks for watching my last video on the major scale. I actually got quite a few views on it so far, and I've already got a number of subscribers, so thanks again. I do want to address one issue that I did notice after editing and posting it last week. I was talking about the sixth chord of the major scale, how it's supposed to be minor, and I stopped on the fifth note of the scale and played it minor. So I just want to let you guys know that you're not supposed to play it that way. The fifth chord should be the major chord, not a minor chord. And then the next note up would be the minor. So just want to let you guys know so there's no confusion. All right, so we're going to go on and move on to the next mode of the major scale, and that would be the Dorian mode. Now, this one's going to be a little bit more involved than last time just because I want to show you what the Dorian mode is, how you shape it, what kind of scales and chords you can use. Well, it's just one scale, obviously, but what kind of chords you can use when you're playing in the scale. But I also want to show you how it relates back to the major scale. So let's go ahead and jump right in. We'll go ahead and talk about that part of it. So the Dorian mode, and I'm going to keep it in the same key that we did last week, in the key of C. So the major scale was all the mode is, and from there you just start using the same notes that you just played, but you're going to play on the next note up, and you're going to extend one more note beyond the major scale. And I'm going to show you a different shape this time. So we were playing the major scale like this, but I'm going to play it like this for this video. Just so that way, when we do our next mode, that way you can kind of see it a little better in comparison to how the major scale was. So the Dorian mode, if we started on the C note for the major scale, we're going to go up one note to D. The same exact shape that we just played, and we're going to continue up until we get to D. So this is what the Dorian mode is going to look like. So as you can see, it kind of has sort of a minor flavor to it. Like, it doesn't really sound bright and happy like the major scale did. It sounds a little more dark. But what I think is really cool about the Dorian mode is that sixth note of the scale. So when you get to... it's a major sound. Now if you were playing in a minor key, you would actually... it would sound more like that note there. But instead what we have is that major sound. So that's really the only difference between a minor scale and a Dorian mode scale, is that major sixth is in the Dorian. So how do you use this mode? So that's kind of exactly it. You kind of want to focus around that major sixth sound, so you can do cool little tricks. I've heard this in countless songs where people do sort of like a like just kind of like those sort of like Western kind of sounding things, like for a melody, or like like really every song I've heard in this mode uses that at some point in there. So it's just a really cool, spicy kind of way to play a minor chord, or minor scale, that is. So moving on, we'll go ahead and talk about some of the chords you can make out of this scale. So as you can see, it's a little different than a minor scale. So it's got different chords that you can take advantage of and different chord patterns. So the first thing, and the most obvious thing, is you're going to start with a minor chord on your first chord. In this case, it's D minor. So in the next, yeah, obviously you would have another minor chord for your second. But the weird thing in comparison to the major scale, in the major scale, your third note made a minor chord. This time you're going to have a major chord. So far your first three chords are going to be, which is really interesting because it's not pretty typical of that. And then eventually, you know, you're going to work your way up the scale and everything, and then you get to your sixth note, and that should be a major chord. So that's kind of the thing about this scale, is what you hear it a lot is in like country western kind of music or similar like that. Other people call it like dad rock or stuff like that. But you also hear it a lot in like Pink Floyd. You hear it in sort of like the stoner rock, I guess if you want to call it that, or the jam bands. So that's what's kind of cool about this mode, is it's just a little more of a spicier kind of exotic kind of sounding minor scale. So when we get to the end, I'm going to show you guys kind of like an example sort of jam track like I did last week. But really what you want to focus on if you're going to build a chord change out of this mode is you want to really focus on that minor first to that major 6. So you can already hear what I was talking about a minute ago with that kind of country western or kind of jam band kind of sound, because you play those two in succession. You can already hear it. It's got kind of like that sort of longing kind of sound to it. Another thing you can do too is put the major 7 in as well. So you have, and it kind of really reinforces that too. Or, you know, try it the other way around. It's just a good way to really spice that up. And then it's really how you would use this, because as opposed to just a basic run-of-the-mill minor scale or minor chord change, you get those kind of interesting sort of different takes and different kinds of major minor differences that you would have for the chords. But if it were me, that's what I would focus on if you're going to compose in the Dorian mode, is just focus on the first chord, focus on the 4th chord, and focus on the 7th chord. So, alright guys, well that's really all I wanted to cover on the Dorian mode. Again, it's really not too complicated, but I think the biggest takeaway here is to build, and really it's every single one of these modes that comes hereafter is built the same exact way. You play the very same scale that you started with the major scale, start up on the next note, and you play the exact same notes that you would otherwise for the major scale, starting on that note. That's what a mode is. And then, so next week we'll talk about the Frisian mode, and we'll start getting into some heavy metal territory, and we'll have a lot of fun with that one. So thanks a lot, guys, and you guys take care.